Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. It means so much to me that you're listening today. Thank you for being here and spending this time with me. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome. I am so glad that you're here. Be sure to listen to the end of every episode. That's where we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Well, as I've told you before, one of the things I love about this show is hearing people's story. And I always love hearing how God takes our stories and he makes them into something amazing. And our guest today, his story is just like that. His name is Curt Nelson. He has been a Walt Disney Imagineer, a full-time magician, a children's book author, a public school physics teacher, a youth pastor, an engineer at HP, a children's pastor, and now he writes and produces the Spyence Kids Church curriculum, a curriculum that features an action-adventure show with superheroes and secret agents and evil robots. Curt loves movies, silly jokes, and his little Maltese dog named Balto. Best of all, Curt holds the unofficial Guinness World Record for best family. His wife Ruth and his two daughters Victoria and Emily, and his son-in-law Chris, all of whom are involved in Spyence curriculum in one way or another. I am so excited for you guys to hear this story about someone who followed God and followed their dreams. So here is my conversation with Curt Nelson. Curt Nelson, thank you so much for being on the Collide Kids podcast today.
My pleasure. This is fun. Thank you, Christen.
Yeah, I am so excited to meet you. You come highly recommended by my friend Tommy Johns, and so I'm really excited to talk with you today. Would you just start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Curt Nelson. Currently, I'm the creator of Spyence, a kids' church curriculum that features an action and adventure show with superheroes and secret agents and evil robots. So it's a fun show for kids to watch and helps us learn about how wonderful our God is and how amazing his plan for us is. And today, I'd just love to share with you and your listeners a little bit about how God prepared me to make Spyence and how his plan was so different than anything I would have expected. And but before we get there, just like so you can kind of picture me a little bit, here's some quick facts about me. I love silly jokes. I'm crazy about movies, and I go see one a week at the movie theater. I love reading and researching and learning about new topics. I'm nuts about my little dog, Balto, who sits on my lap all day while I work on Spyence on my computer. And I have a wonderful family. My wife, Ruth, my two daughters, Victoria and Emily, and my son-in-law, Chris.
That's awesome. I love that. And it sounds like you're going to fit in really well in this community because we love silly jokes. So let's start with one. We always like to start out with jokes on this show because it's a show for kids and they love this part. So no pressure, but this is like where all the kids are tuning in, paying attention. You
All
got
right.
a joke for us today?
Yeah, I actually brought 4. I'll just hit you with them real
Ooh,
quick.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, what kinds of birds stick to trees?
I don't know.
Velcros.
I like that.
What do you call a can opener that doesn't work?
I don't know.
A can't opener.
A can't opener. I have a couple of can't openers in my drawer. Cheers.
That's funny. What kind of monkey would you find up in the sky?
I don't know.
A hot air baboon.
That's a good one.
And lastly, what happened to the guy who drank 8 Cokes?
I think I know this guy. I don't know what happened to the guy that drank 8 Cokes.
He burped 7 Up.
Those are great. Wow. You like rapid fire. I love that. Those are good. I love that. And I like the can't opener. I really do think I have a few of those in my kitchen. So, okay, I want to get into your story because you said you loved movies and, so you write church curriculum. Like, how did all this get started where you were trying to put all this together?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to when I was a kid, and when I was young, my family, we didn't go see a lot of movies, but I remember vividly when I was 9 years old and Star Wars came out for the first time. It was such a big deal and everybody was talking about it. And so my parents took me to see it, and they weren't crazy about it, but I loved it. And I was immediately hooked on science fiction and spaceships and laser battles. And I started seeing more movies, and I got hooked on superheroes and superpowers. And I was really fascinated by the special effects in these movies. And
Yeah.
I just started reading everything I could find on special effects and learning everything I could about how they make laser battles look real or how they make robots move and talk. And I wanted to make my own movies. And luckily, my parents had an 8mm video camera that they would let me use. And that's a real old kind of video camera that used actual film. And you would hold down the button to record, and it would go and record a bunch of video. But I didn't want to record a bunch of video at a time. I just wanted to take one frame of video at a time and make stop motion videos like Chicken Run or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or
Oh, yeah.
Wallace and Gromit. And so to make stop motion videos, you set up these characters, and then you push a button and take one frame of video, and then you move them all just a little bit and take another frame of video and move them all and take another frame. And nowadays it's pretty easy. I mean, even cell phones can do it. But back then you had to buy a special attachment for your camera. And my parents were nice enough to buy that special attachment for me for a camera so I could take one frame at a time. And I started making stop motion videos with my Star Wars action figures. So I would set them all up in like the scene. I would take one frame, I'd move them a little bit, take another frame, move them a little bit, take another frame. And after I'd moved them 16 times and taken up 16 frames, that would be 1 second of a movie on that 8mm film. So if I wanted to make a 1-minute movie, I would have to do that 960 times.
Wow.
And so, as you can imagine, most of my movies were pretty short back then.
Yeah. So did you think you were going to just grow up and make movies?
At the time I did, when I was in like in elementary school, maybe in a junior high. But then as I got into high school and started thinking about college, I thought, well, that's probably just going to be a fun hobby. And as I started thinking about what to do with my life, I especially looked at my dad, who's a very successful engineer. And I thought, well, I'm pretty good at math and science. And in high school, I was a National Merit Scholar and valedictorian. So I thought I probably should go into engineering like my dad. So I went to college and got a degree in mechanical engineering at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was getting my degree, I realized I really did want to make movies and do special effects for a living. So I started visiting movie sets and talking to the special effects people and letting them know I was interested in working on movies. And then I actually got to do special effects for an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie during that time.
Wow.
Yeah, and I also started making my own movie called Defense Pickle versus Dr. Slime Bucket. And that little movie helped me get my dream job at the time. I got hired for a 6-month internship in the special effects department at Walt Disney Imagineering.
Wow. I've heard of Walt Disney before. Yeah. Imagine. So that's really cool. Did you work on anything that we would know about?
Yeah, the first 2 things I worked on were in Euro Disney, so probably not many people have seen those, but I got to work on Pirates of the Caribbean and Big Thunder Railroad for Euro Disney. And then I helped create the Stitch's Great Escape ride at Disney World in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And that was super fun. I got to sculpt a prototype of a little alien character named Skippy the Fluff Lagoon Cliffhugger. And he's a character in the pre-ride show. He's this little alien they try to transport at the beginning, but it doesn't work out well. He comes out the other side, but he's all burnt and smoking. And he's really cute. And like years later, my family and I actually went to Disney World and got to see him in the ride once it was actually in operation. And my kids have bought me little Skippy figures, from Disney and stuff. And it was a really fun job. And I was really proud of the work I got to do there. And so I was thinking like, oh man, all my dreams are coming true. I wanted to make movies and do special effects. And I was only 21 and I already worked on a movie and I was doing special effects at Walt Disney Imagineering. So I figured, man, I'm just going to make movies and do special effects all my life. This is a dream. Because of course, God gives you everything you want and it makes it easy, right?
Right.
No. No, yeah. Right. That's not usually how God works, as I was about to find out over and over. So I finished my internship. I went back to Cal Poly to finish up the last year of my mechanical engineering degree. And when I was done, I totally expected to go back to Disney and keep working there. But that didn't work out. They were nearly done with Euro Disney and they didn't need as many people as they did before. So there wasn't a spot for me.
Mm-hmm.
So now what am I going to do? Well, God steered me out of making movies and doing special effects completely. So I had just gotten started doing what I loved, and God moved me on to something else right away. And what he did was give me a desire to be a missionary. So I looked into a couple different options, and I finally decided to be a missionary to the public schools and represent Jesus as a high school science teacher. So I stayed
That's
at Cal
awesome.
Poly. Yeah, I stayed at Cal Poly. I got my teaching credential, and I loved teaching physics. We did fun science projects and field trips, and it was going great, except that I realized teachers can't really tell kids about Jesus in the public school. It's
Yeah.
not allowed, right? Kids can tell other kids about Jesus, but teachers really can't. So I prayed about it, and then I felt God leading me to become a youth pastor. Then I could work with high school kids and talk to them about Jesus all I wanted. So my wife Ruth and I and our two daughters moved to Oregon so I could go to Western Seminary. And seminary, for kids don't know, that's like pastor school.
Yeah.
And I worked as a youth pastor at a church in Hillsboro while I went to seminary, and everything was going great until there were some huge problems at my church. Turned out I had taken a job at a very legalistic church without knowing it. And there were strong disagreements about God's grace and love and salvation and other important matters. And people were arguing all the time, and everything just blew up. And I was on the wrong side of the argument. And my church asked me to resign. And I felt really let down by God, because my family and I had moved to Oregon, and the church was my job. It was also where we lived, because I lived in the parsonage, and it was also the school my kids went to, their Christian school. So it felt like we lost everything all at once, and I was depressed. I mean, I just got really depressed, and I was angry at God, and I couldn't see it at the time, but God was working even through that whole situation. And as we get to the end of my story, you'll see it all come together. But at the time, it felt like a big, heartbreaking dead end that God led me down and just dumped me. And I was mad at God for letting that happen. So then I didn't know what to do. So I kind of fell back on my engineering degree and went to work at Hewlett Packard in Corvallis, Oregon. And that was fun. I worked there 7 years, and I got 10 patents, which was kind of a dream of mine to have a patent in my name someday. But during the first year there, I was just healing from the hurt of being asked to quit that church job. And I slowly realized over the year that God hadn't let me down, that a lot of people have gotten hurt by the church over the years. That doesn't mean God's not good.
That's right.
God's always good. So I gradually was able to put that pain behind me and get over the depression and stop being mad at God, and was able to get on with loving and serving God. And I'm really grateful to God for that time, because working as an engineer at HP gave me like the time and space to heal. So HP was a great place to work, but the job didn't really fulfill me. I really just wanted to be working with kids again, and not even high school kids. One thing I'd learned working at that church was that I really liked working with elementary school kids, and that I really wanted to be a children's pastor, not a youth pastor. So after working 7 years at HP, I quit to become a children's pastor. Well, no, that would have made sense. That would have been like if I had planned it out.
Yeah.
But that wasn't God's plan. I quit HP because I got an opportunity to do school magic shows with my puppet rat, who wrote a book called Roosevelt Rats Learn Magic from A to Z. And schools invited us to come do author visits with Roosevelt Rat, and I would do magic tricks and teach kids about the importance of reading and learning. And I think your friend Tommy knows Roosevelt Rat really well.
Yeah, Tommy Johns, he definitely does.
Yes. Yeah. So I had a fun time doing magic shows, I think for 4 years. And I built up a relationship with a lot of librarians who knew me and hired me to come speak at their school each year. And then due to budget cuts, the state of Oregon announced plans to lay off all of their school librarians next year and replace them all with classified staff. So basically all the customers I had built up were gone, and my business was going to be in big trouble next year. But again, God had a twist planned in my story that I wasn't expecting, but he knew was coming all along. So right about that time, one of the pastors from our church traveled to another city with me and watched me do school shows. And then we went out to a meal, and he told me our church was interested in hiring me as their full-time children's pastor. And I was like, oh my soul, that's my dream job. I was so excited about that. And I took the job there and was the children's pastor for 11 years. And it was so fun because we already went to that church and knew people. And I just got to do my dream job there for 11 years. And made so many good memories and got to work with amazing volunteers. And I got to teach kids church every Sunday, which I loved. And one of my responsibilities was pick the curriculum to teach on Sundays. And I was having trouble finding a kids church curriculum that had everything I wanted. So I was looking for a curriculum, a video curriculum where it had like a 10-minute intro video that really taught kids theology, not just like what they should or shouldn't do, but why they might want to live that way based on God's character and his plan for their lives. And I wanted high quality videos with a good story, like a real plot with real heroes and villains where there were real stakes, like something bad was going to happen if the heroes didn't thwart the villain's plans. And I wanted them to do videos that would make the kids want to be at church every single Sunday because they didn't want to miss a single episode. And I couldn't find anything just perfect like that. So I started writing my own curriculum and I called it Spyence, which is a combination of spies and science.
Nice.
So the spies part comes from the video. So I made up a story about the secret headquarters with secret agents and superheroes. And the science part comes from the teacher's lesson plan because I used to be a science teacher and I love science experiments. There's a Spyence experiment each week and the kids make something that they get to take home and show their friends and invite them to come to church with them. And then so going back to the videos, each week the evil robots have some nefarious plan and the superheroes have to work with their mission director, Secret Agent K, and their gadget guy, Chris. And then these superheroes, the Shark Rat Super Sisters, try to stop the evil robots. And along the way, one of them learns an important Bible lesson that like sets the teacher up for the lesson they're going to teach in class that day. So I loved making that, and other churches got interested in using it. And basically, I felt God called me to step down as the children's pastor at our church and start making the Spyence curriculum full time. And my church supported me and sent us out to do this. And we still go there. I still serve in the children's ministry. But that was April of last year that I stepped down from doing children's pastor full time to being a curriculum writer full time.
That's amazing. What an incredible story. So many twists and turns and all these things that happen in your life. But I've had so many people come on the podcast and say, I had this job and then I had something really different over here and something really different than what I thought the plan was. But it all ended up working out, that God put all of that together. So I love hearing stories like this about how we do all these different things thinking, oh, this is just a waste of time, or this isn't going to be worth very much, but God uses all of that.
That's so good. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I experienced, that all those random careers, like at the time, I didn't understand that there was a big plan. It just seemed like, okay, here's the next job. Okay, here's the next job. But looking back, I could see how God wove them all together just to prepare me for what he wanted me to do. Like when I got to Disney, I didn't get a long-term job there like I was hoping, but I had enough success doing special effects that it gave me the confidence when it was time to make Spyence videos that I could do the laser battles and the evil robots and all that kind of thing. So I can see why God gave me that short opportunity at Disney. Or I think about my time as a science teacher. After 4 years, I quit that to do something else. But in that time, I went from very shy. I mean, I remember the first time I did my student teaching, I was so nervous. When it was over, I couldn't even remember if I had done it. I had to ask my master teacher, did I do the lesson? He's like, yeah, of course you did. I was like, okay. So I just blanked it out. But I grew from that shy and just could not stand in front of a crowd to, a confident teacher, and I enjoy teaching. So God knew that was growing I would need to do. Or I look back at my time in seminary, where I got to meet Dr. Rodmacher, who is a theology professor who changed my life. He helped me understand and appreciate God's grace and his love for me and my eternal security and so many other pivotal truths. And he just taught me that theology, or learning the truths of the Bible, can radically change your life. And even at my youth pastor job that ended so badly, it was at that church that I learned I wanted to work with elementary school kids. And that eventually led me to have the perfect job for me as a children's pastor at Northwest Hills Community Church. So even the way that ended so badly and I got depressed and mad at God, that's really helped me like relate to and empathize with people who go through hard times. And then HP, the same thing. Like, what does that have to do with making movies or writing curriculum or telling kids about Jesus? But I wasn't a super computer literate person at that time. And that's when I built up all my computer skills. And nowadays making videos or like podcasts, it's all about computer skills. And then the magic school assemblies, you think, well, that just seems like kind of a fun time, but not really important. But that was when I got to go to schools and do these school show assemblies where you want to teach the kids something, but you have to make it super fun and engaging because there might be like 500 kids there and you're trying to hold all their attention. So I got to experiment with fun and effective teaching methods. I use all those in Spyence now. And then finally, being a kids' church pastor for 11 years and getting to see what kind of questions kids are asking about God and what they need to know about living for Him and His plan for their lives. And so all those different jobs that God took me through brought me to a place where I can live out my dream of making movies with special effects and evil robots and laser battles and getting to share the gospel openly with kids. And it's so fun. My wife, Ruth, co-directs the episodes with me, and my daughters, Victoria and Emily, are the Shark Rat Super Sisters. And my son-in-law, Chris, is their gadget guy. And then my daughter, Victoria, works with me to edit the videos. And my other daughter, Emily, goes to kids' church and teaches the lessons with me. And it's like dad couldn't ask for anything more. So it's not how I pictured I'd be making movies and doing special effects, but it's much better than how I pictured it. So I always tell kids, God's plan for my life was more complicated and much better than I could have imagined when I was young. And I know God's plan for your life will probably be more complicated and different and better than you could have imagined.
Yeah, what an encouraging thought. And I love that there's so many different places along the way where even in the jobs that were not related to the church, God was still using you and using you to help other people, to encourage other people. So I think it's incredible how your story has so many twists and you were just open to all of them, like you're just open to going to the next thing. And sometimes it's okay to do one thing for your whole life, but sometimes it's okay to do a lot of different things. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, obviously God led all the way, and I have to give my wife, Ruth, a lot of credit for being flexible, and she always supported me and said, okay, this is the next thing God wants us to do. Okay, let's do it.
We'll be right back after this. Raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Spyence. Like, what is it about this curriculum that is so different than other church curriculums?
Well, I think what I wanted to see, I think right now there's a lot of really good curriculums that go through the Bible chronologically. And that's really exciting. Probably 10 years ago, there weren't many like that. But what I wanted was also one that taught kids systematic theology. So in seminary, like at least in my seminary, there was a 3-quarter class called systematic theology, and it teaches you all the doctrines or the truths of the Bible kind of organized in a logical way. And so it's kind of a different way to study the Bible. You can study the story going from Genesis to Revelation, or you can kind of take all these truths from different books and combine them. And there's definitely, you need both. You want to know the whole story of the Bible. But then the systematic theology side brings out some things you probably don't get in a chronological Bible study, like the doctrine of the Holy Spirit. If you're covering the whole Bible in a year or whatever, there's not many places where you really get to dive in to the Holy Spirit. Like maybe you might take a week in Acts to kind of focus on him. But anyway, so what I wanted to do was make a systematic theology for kids. Or in my mind, I call it seminary for kids. And I took my systematic theology book from college and I divided it up into 16 seasons of Spyence, and each one's 6 units. So it's about a 2-year series. And in that 2-year series, we'll cover all of the topics that we covered in systematic theology in college, only we'll cover them at like a kid-friendly level. And at the end of that, and each week the kids will learn like one theology term, and we call it the secret code word of the day. And so as they're growing up in a church and they hear a word like justification or illumination or, preservation or Trinity, they'll be familiar with those words because they learned them in these 2 years in Spyence. So that was kind of my vision for it, just to really be able to go deep into theology with kids and then use super fun videos to hook them and get them super ready for the lesson.
That's exciting. And I think a lot of times we think, oh, kids wouldn't understand that, or kids don't want to go deep, but they really do. Kids are so smart and they absorb so much more information than we give them credit for. And I just love that this is something that takes them on a deeper level. That sounds really exciting. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. You have a great story and it's so encouraging to hear. And I love learning about your curriculum. Where can our listeners find out more about Spyence?
Oh, yeah. They can go to spyencetv.com. So it's SPYENCE TV.com. And then on that front page, there's a button that you can click for churches or for families. And you can look at the church curriculum or the family devotions.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that if your church doesn't do it, your family could check it out as well.
Yeah. Or let me mention another thing. You can go to YouTube and search for Spyence Bible Lessons or Spyence Mission X. And those are the fun videos. And you can check out some of the videos on YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And we love YouTube. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people checking that out. That's amazing. Well,
Excellent.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. Before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests to share a memory from when they were a kid. So do you have a memory you want to share with us today?
Yeah, a good memory that we laugh about all the time when my family gets together. We were just talking about it when we got together at Christmas, so that's what made me think of it. But we used to have this game we called the book drop game, and there were 3 kids in my family. I was the oldest, and my sister was 5 years younger than me, and my little brother is 12 years younger than me. But okay, so the book drop game goes like this. My friends and I would get a bunch of books, and we'd go up the stairs to the second floor in our house, and there was a place where you could drop things from over the railing from the second floor down to the first floor. And so my friends and I would drop books from upstairs down to the first floor, and we would try to hit a moving target. So
Oh, no.
any guess what we used for our moving target?
I hope not people.
Well, you would hope not, but it was my little sister. And I don't know why she agreed to play this game with us all the time, but she would stand down on the first floor and we would drop books from the second floor. And some of them were pretty heavy books, and she would try to dodge them. So she must have been pretty good at it because I don't remember her ever getting hurt badly.
That sounds like a game that no one should play right now.
I agree.
But I love that she was willing. I thought you were just doing that to people that randomly passed by, but she knew it was happening.
Oh, no, it was part of the game. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm so glad your sister's okay and that it didn't end terribly. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story and for being on the show today. It was so great talking to you.
Thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate it.
Can you believe he had all those different jobs, all the random careers? He didn't realize there was a big plan, but God was able to weave them all together so that he could live out his dream of making movies and teaching kids. I love when he said that God's plan for your life is more complicated and much better than you can imagine. It reminds me of the verse in Ephesians chapter 3. I think it's verse 20. It says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." And he talked today about the Bible and learning something called theology. Theology is the study of God. It's learning about how all the Bible stories fit together and teach us about who God is. And sometimes there are big words or there are things that are deep, but it's still important for us to understand those things and learn those things at any age. Well, if you would like to check out Spyence and his program, he has a lot of cool videos on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and search Spyence Bible Lessons. You can also go to his website, spyencetv.com, and check out all the good things they have there for church curriculums as well as family studies and devotionals. And be sure to follow them on Facebook. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So I am excited for you guys to hear this joke by Ayza.
Hi, my name is Ayza, and I'm gonna tell you a joke. Why can't you give Elsa a balloon? Because she will let it go. Let it go, let it go.
Thanks, Ayza. I love that joke. I'm a big fan of Frozen, so that's a good one. And you have a great singing voice. Good job. Well, if you would like to be on the podcast just like Ayza was and share your favorite joke, or maybe you have a favorite Bible verse that you want to share, or a quote that you like from a book or a movie, just go to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, or go to my social media and you'll find information about how to send that to me there. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. Hey, would you like to support the podcast? I would love your support. Here's a few ways you can do that. First, be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever podcast app you're using. And be sure to leave a rating and a review. When you do that, it gives shows like mine a boost in the podcast app, and then more people get to hear about the show and have fun like you're having. You can also share this episode with friends and family and tell them why you and your family like to listen. Or you can go to my website and click the link that says Buy Me a Coffee. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I hope that you guys have an amazing week. I hope that you are following after God and following your dreams. And you never know how God's going to take all those things and weave them together for his big plan. In case no one has told you, I would love to be the first to remind you today that God loves you so very much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.